Patrick, you go first on this one. Do you favor an independent group to redraw the election district lines? If yes, are you willing to buck the establishment to do so?
Yes and yes. I signed a pledge several months ago, put forward by a group of people, most out of New York City, former Mayor Ed Koch, former Mayor Rudy Giuliani, former State Controller Ned Reagan, called New York Uprising. It focused on reforms in 3 areas: ethics reform, budget reform, and independent redistricting. When you look at the way that these districts have been gerrymandered, and you look at the result of what we've seen in our state, especially the last 2 years, the culture of corruption. Just yesterday, a former senator who had been convicted of a crime was indicted on federal charges. The gerrymandering, among other things, has led to that. So I absolutely do support independent redistricting, and I'm very willing to stand up and honor the pledge that I signed several months ago.
Who do you trust to redistrict? Myself, or Cindy, or Pat, Al D'Amato, Tom Reynolds, Fahey, Volker for 38 years. Those aren't the people running my campaign. You really believe that someone's going to go up there with those people behind him and that special interest money behind them and redistrict anything? I don't. Go back to trust. Who do you trust? Redistricting is going to be the biggest thing that happens this year. If the Republicans don't win this Senate, the Democrats will control it. They'll redistrict us right out of oblivion. I'm not a former Democrat. I'm a former conservative. From the day I graduated high school in '78 up until 1999. Then I went Republican. My opponents are both Democrats, former Democrat, and one is a Democrat. I ask you, who do you trust to redistrict? I don't have any special interest stripping from me. That's what I'm fighting. Term limits. I'm not for a property tax cap. I'm for a cut. 5% a year for 3 years. We got the highest in the country. Cap? That's for losers. Excuse me. Anybody can cap. There's no leadership in a cap. But I go back and we talk about ethics reform. I don't hear my opponent talk about pension reform. Okay, doesn't that start with ethics? I am talking about the question. We're talking about trust on who is going to handle the issues that come in front of a New York State senator. And that's what I'm discussing. I'll fight for redistricting. Of course I will. But you can trust that I'll actually do it. Because I don't need the job. It's as simple as that.
The list of changes we need to make in government is huge. We need tougher campaign finance laws so that representation and not re-election is always the most important concern of the legislators. Today, the campaign contribution today limit for a statewide office is $37,800. That's more than most of the people in my village of Warsaw make in 1 year. Just as important for the future is an independent panel to handle redistricting. An independent panel, so that voters pick their elected officials instead of politicians picking their voters. Running to represent a gerrymandered district that stretches from the shores of Lake Erie all the way to the Finger Lakes, which I've driven many times, that's 131 miles, is the strongest reminder that I could ask for drawing sensible districts which keep communities together. And it should never be treated like a political football. I too signed that pledge of reform, and when I put my pen to paper and put my name there, I take that pledge very, very seriously.